President Donald Trump of the United States, U.S. may be trying to cause unnecessary confusion to the traditional way of war settlements which dated back to the end of World War I in 1918 and World War II in 1945 when Germany, considered as the aggressor, was meant to pay damages or reparation or the costs incurred by the U.S., Britain, France and the Soviet Union, which comprises Russia, Ukraine and 13 other republics, when Germany on August 1, 1914 mobilized troops from Berlin to support the defunct Austria-Hungary country, which included German-speaking Austrians, Magyars, Slavs, and Italians, after the Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on June 28, 1914 following the bombing and shooting to death the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife, Sophie, the Duchess of Hohenberg, by a suspected group of extremists from Serbia that wanted to increase Serbian power in the Balkans by breaking up the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the shooting specifically was carried out by a 19-year-old Gavrilo Princip. Russia came to the aid of Serbia, and with the support of other countries like Britain and France, Austria-Hungary was defeated after so many deaths, especially on the side of Serbia's civilian populations, and at the end of the World War I, Germany was meant to pay the damages and costs of war as the aggressor, and on September 1, 1939, Adolf Hitler of Germany, who is considered a nationalist extremist, on his apparent quest to expand iron race in Europe, invaded Poland, a border country whose people were considered inferior and powerless people, likely the same way Vladimir Putin of Russia may have seen Ukrainians. The action of Adolf Hitler forced Britain, France, US, and the Soviet Union to declare war on Germany on September 3, 1939, and the defeated Germany at the end of the World War II in 1945 after Adolf Hitler and his top generals refused to surrender and reportedly committed suicides inside their underground bunkers after millions of deaths, especially Jews. And in order to make Germany unable to attack another country again, Britain, France and US occupied West Germany, including West Berlin, for years with capitalist economy system, and at the same time, the Soviet Union occupied East Germany, including East Berlin, with communist economy system, and Germany, considered as the aggressor, was again meant to pay the damages or the costs of the World War II, which Germany has struggled to pay up to 2010, and it may be clearer that no victim of World War I, Serbia and World War II, Poland was apparently meant to pay debts or sign economic deals for the costs incurred by the countries that came to their aid. This may justify the action of Donald Trump requesting Ukraine to sign rare earth minerals deal with the US as criminally exploitative demand, and Donald Trump pushing the narrative that Europe will get their money back and US will not get its money back is simply and half-truths meant to mislead the public. Like President Emmanuel Macron of France recently corrected Donald Trump at the Oval Office that Europe is not getting the money back from Ukraine, that Russia is the one to pay them back the money, most especially from the seized Russia assets in Europe, and the US under the immediate past President Joe Biden seized billions of dollars of Russia assets confiscated to finance US aid to Ukraine. Interestingly, Vladimir Putin of Russia, who is also considered as a nationalist extremist like Adolf Hitler of Germany, on February 24, 2022 in a world news broadcast, made it very clear that he decided to declare special military operations in Ukraine because of US. That for many years, the US tried to expand its powers, stressing he does not have problem with Europe or NATO, saying NATO is the US foreign policy used by the North America to try to conquer Russia by thus enlisting some other countries that made up the defunct Soviet Union into NATO, and he would never allow US to assemble its military infrastructures in Ukraine, its closest neighboring country. Hence he decided to go after the pro-US Ukrainian politicians and government officials by demilitarizing Ukraine and reclaiming it as an independent territory he said was once part of Russia, adding that he mobilized Russian troops to invade and reclaim parts of Ukraine, which included Crimea, in 2014 in support of Russian-speaking people in Donbas he said were suffering humiliation and genocide attack by Kyiv government for many years, which President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in several occasions has accused Putin of always sponsoring and organizing terrorists to kill Ukrainians. A careful study shows that Russia may have been attacking Ukraine and other Soviet Union breakaway countries for decades because of fear of US power and the expansion of the US powers, with the North America country being backed by other powers in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, which was formed in 1949 by the US because of threats from the then Soviet Union. Putin has said during the world broadcast in 2022 that successive governments of U.S. have failed to respect the U.S.-Soviet Union agreement signed in 1987 by President Ronald Reagan of U.S. and Mikhail Gorbachev of Soviet Union, which reportedly agreed that the United States and the Soviet Union would avoid military confrontations and to prevent the use of nuclear weapons, and the Russia-NATO agreement during NATO summit in Paris, France in 1997 that stipulates mutual relations and security guarantee, which Putin said on February 24, 2022 that the agreement include U.S. not expanding its military formation in any of the Soviet Union republics, adding that, after the collapse of Soviet Union, some of the republics have been enlisted into NATO. But a check on why 3 countries from the defunct Soviet Union, Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia joined NATO in 2004 during Putin's first tenure as the president of Russia from 2000 to 2008, indicated that there was threat from Russia, and they all said they chose to align with US and Europe for the security guarantee of their people and territories against Putin-led Russia influence. Some other member countries of the defunct Soviet Union, which included Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan have expressed interest to form alliance with the US and other European countries to be enlisted into NATO for their security guarantee against Putin-led Russia government influence. It would be recalled that the Soviet Union, officially the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, USSR, was a country made up of 15 republics that existed from 1922 to 1991, and they became very powerful after the end of World War II in 1945 and was seen as a threat by the US and European countries. In fact, the power of the USSR was felt during the Cold War that started shortly after the end of World War II till 1990. But Putin's style of managing relations with other member countries of the defunct Soviet Union may have forced them to want to join NATO, and Putin insisting that the remaining others must not join NATO is apparently a case of a dictator trying to violate the sovereignty of Ukraine, Georgia, amongst others, as if they are colonies still under Russia rule. We called on the US President Donald Trump to show good and responsible commitment if he really wanted to resolve the Russia-Ukraine war by thus alleviating the fears of Putin that US has no intention to attack Russia as long as Russia can start and continue to respect the sovereignty of the member countries of the defunct Soviet Union, and Putin must allow those that want to join NATO do so, because as an independent countries, their rights to political and military decisions should be respected by Russia, including the US. None of the former Soviet Union republics became more interested in joining NATO until Vladimir Putin came into power in 2000. Even when they were having political issues with other Russian presidents, they never were more interested like it is now in joining NATO until Putin started attacking them, accusing them of forming an alliance with the US. After the diplomatic failure at the U.S. Oval Office between President Donald Trump and President Volodymyr Zelenskyy last Friday, the UK signed a new loan agreement with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on March 1, 2025 during a meeting at 10 Downing Street last Saturday. The UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Zelenskyy finalized a £2.26 billion, approximately $2.8 billion United States dollars, bilateral loan to support Ukraine's defense capabilities. It was gathered that the loan is part of the G7's Extraordinary Revenue Acceleration (ERA) loans for Ukraine initiative, with the funds intended to be repaid using revenues from frozen Russian assets. Zelenskyy noted that the money would be directed toward weapons production in Ukraine, framing it as a step toward justice by making Russia bear the financial burden of the war it initiated. Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, who also attended the European Summit for Ukraine in the UK, said in numbers of posts on his Facebook account that, "I'm in London this morning, working with President Zelenskyy, Prime Minister Starmer, and European leaders to bring about a just and lasting peace in Ukraine, one that guarantees Ukraine's sovereignty and security." Russia's war against Ukraine did not start on February 24, 2022. It started over a decade ago, in Crimea, and every day since, Canada has been clear: we stand with the people of Ukraine. In London, I announced new sanctions against key Kremlin allies, paramilitary organizations, their leaders, and others who are complicit in helping Russia wage war in Ukraine. We won't allow Russia's enablers to prolong this illegal invasion. Russia illegally and unjustifiably invaded Ukraine. For 3 years now, Ukrainians have fought with courage and resilience. Their fight for democracy, freedom, and sovereignty is a fight that matters to us all. Canada will continue to stand with Ukraine and Ukrainians in achieving a just and lasting peace. On June 13, 2024, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau posted on his verified Facebook account and said thus: "Canada has always said that Russia should pay for its illegal invasion of Ukraine, and it will. G7 nations just announced that we will use Russia's own resources to back a new $50 billion USD loan for Ukraine to defend and rebuild." Volodymyr Zelenskyy, in a video and written statement on Monday, said that, "As a result of these days, we see clear support from Europe. Even more unity, even more willingness to cooperate. Everyone is united on the main issue. For peace to be real, we need real security guarantees. And this is the position of all of Europe, the entire continent. The United Kingdom, the European Union, Turkey. Of course, we understand the importance of America, and we are grateful for all the support we've received from the United States. There has not been a day when we haven't felt gratitude. It's gratitude for the preservation of our independence. Our resilience in Ukraine is based on what our partners are doing for us, and for their own security. What we need is peace, not endless war. And that's why we say security guarantees are the key to this." We had reported that the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has told United States U.S. President Donald Trump that Ukrainians don't need just a ceasefire from President Vladimir Putin-led Russia, but a complete end to the war, which Ukraine's security will be guaranteed from further or future invasions from the neighboring rival European country, adding that he was in the United States to sign rare earth mineral deals as drafted by both countries' teams, which included Ukraine's security guarantee, making the statement at the Oval Office on Friday afternoon according to American local time, when the meeting went smoothly, friendly and calmly for more than 35 minutes until the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance interrupted and brought in U.S. internal political matters into the Russia-Ukraine issue by thus condemning the administration of the immediate past President of the U.S., Joe Biden, for always appearing before the press to accuse Putin and Russia of bringing destructions to Ukraine without an act of diplomacy to peace path, which he said the current President Donald Trump is trying to achieve. And the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy quickly responded and asked the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance what kind of diplomacy is he talking about, reminding the Vice President that Putin has been destroying lives in Ukraine for years during the era of previous presidents before Joe Biden, including 2014 when Russia took over Crimea, to 2022 and 2019 during the first tenure of President Donald Trump, when he signed a ceasefire peace deal with Putin, but the Russia president broke the ceasefire and continued to destroy lives in Ukraine. Obviously and apparently annoyed, Vice President J.D. responded by accusing the visiting Zelenskyy of coming to the Oval Office to disrespect U.S. sitting president in his office, adding that no president in the world has ever done that before in the Oval Office. The full length of the meeting video footage and the Fox News interview with Zelenskyy shortly after the Oval Office meeting ended with heated arguments and series of crosstalks are published in full in our audio and video versions of this news reportage. We had reported that, contrary to media speculations that the embattled Ukraine has reached an agreement with the United States, U.S.-led President Donald Trump on the rare earth minerals deal required as exchange or economic benefits for the U.S. to continue to assist the war-torn Ukraine with military aid against ongoing President Vladimir Putin-led Russia military destructions and bring peace to the country. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, in a video press release on Wednesday night, debunks the speculations, saying, "The US and the Ukrainian teams have been working together in preparation for the negotiations on the terms of the economic deal this coming Friday in the US, signaling, no agreement has been reached yet. We had reported that the United States President, Donald Trump, has said that if the war in Ukraine is not stopped now, it could lead or escalate to World War III, with the visiting French President, Emmanuel Macron, insisting that Russia is the aggressor of the war, hence Russia must pay damages as part of the negotiations for the peace deal." But the US, in another meeting at the United Nations General Assembly on Monday, joined Russia to vote against a resolution condemning Russia over the war in Ukraine. "We had reported that, following the public criticism of President Donald Trump of the United States, that the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, is a man who has lost touch with his people and a dictator who refused to conduct election for new leader to take over the affairs of the country," Zelenskyy, while asked if he could resign by a journalist at a press conference organized to mark the third year anniversary of war in Ukraine, says he would do that if it would bring peace to Ukraine, and he's ready to do that as exchange for Ukraine to be enlisted as a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. "We had earlier reported that despite the medical condition that he's under the high flow of oxygen in the hospital over double pneumonia," Pope Francis on Sunday, on the eve of the third year anniversary of the war in Ukraine launched by President Vladimir Putin-led Russian government, called on everyone in the world to remember victims of the war in Ukraine, describing the war, which started on February 24, 2022, as painful, shameful for all humanity. Previously, we reported that the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, has continued his phone conversations with world leaders, with a video and written press statement on Saturday saying that the world leaders must ensure that the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, is not allowed to deceive the world again, insisting that Putin has used Russian army, intelligence services and mercenaries over 30 years to bring death to America, Europe, Africa, Middle East, Syria. This, Zelenskyy stated after he began special defense campaign with phone conversations with world leaders following strained relationship with one of the countries that has majorly assisted Ukraine in its defense against Russia since 2022 when the war began, United States, US President Donald Trump, who threatened to stop military aid to Ukraine, claiming that Ukraine started the war it knows it cannot win, calling President Volodymyr Zelenskyy a modestly successful comedian and a dictator that deceived the immediate past US President Joe Biden to commit over $350 billion of US taxpayers' money on a war the North America country will not get any profit in return, with the Ukrainian president accusing Donald Trump of disinformation and saying that Putin-led Russia has intensified attacks and launched massive bomb destructions on Ukraine cities and villages during the week of Donald Trump's outburst.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.